Today I'm at the Cheshire Fairgrounds in Swanzey, New Hampshire for the Wild Horse and Burro Adoption event hosted by the Bureau of Land Management. All right, I just got here, walking over now. This was a 2-day event that served as a pickup location for adopters who won Mustangs in the January online Corral, but I'd say most of the Mustangs at this event were available for adoption. According to the Bureau of Land Management, there are approximately 80,000 wild horses and burros on public lands. On the BLM's website, it says that the Bureau of Land Management manages and protects wild horses and burros on 26.9 million acres of public lands across 10 western states as part of its mission to administer public lands for a variety of uses. The Wild Horse and Burros program's goal is to manage healthy wild horses and burros on healthy public rangelands. According to the BLM, since they have virtually no natural predators, herd sizes can double approximately every 4 years, which poses a problem for the BLM's overarching goal of achieving and maintaining a thriving natural ecological balance. As a result, every year thousands of wild horses and burros are removed from public lands. In the fiscal year 2022, over 20,000 were removed. Everything that I've just shared is from the perspective of the BLM, but it's not that simple. It's all extremely controversial, from the need for the roundups, to how the roundups are conducted, to what happens to the Mustangs after the roundups. Now, I have no affiliation with the Bureau of Land Management or any other group. I'm sharing this information to let you know this controversy exists. You should not be formulating an opinion based off of what I've just shared because it's not enough information. There is so much more to the story and so much more to research, so please do that. Regardless of your stance on the roundups, the reality is there are thousands of wild horses and burros that have already been rounded up and are still in holding. Now, these animals are made available for adoption to the public. However, in the fiscal year 2022, only about 8,000 were placed into private care compared to the 20,000 that were removed. And compared to approximately 80,000 wild horses and burros on public lands, about 60,000 are in long and short-term holding. Again, I'm sure that raises more questions and, believe me, more controversy, but it's far more than I can include in this video here. I'm just one person who's trying to make a difference in the handful of Mustangs that I've adopted, as well as educating and informing people about Mustangs. Without a doubt, these Mustangs have had their worlds flipped upside down and are in need of safe, loving homes. So join me for a behind-the-scenes look at the New Hampshire adoption event in April 2023. And by the way, if you adopted a Mustang from this event and would like to share your story, please do reach out. I would love to follow up with you. So upon my arrival, I was honestly pretty overwhelmed with seeing all the different horses and just not knowing where to start. However, right away I started recognizing many familiar faces of horses that I had seen in the online corral, also known as the internet auction.
Wow, you're beautiful.
These two Palominos, for example, I recognized from the online corral, and I believe they were from the Centennial HMA, or herd management area. Then I spotted a horse that some of you might recognize.
Oh my gosh!
He's 50. Oh, 50, I'm sure he's a 5-year-old.
I'm so excited to see him here.
5002 was a 5-year-old gelding from the Pancake HMA. I had actually been bidding on this horse in the online corral, but ultimately lost. Some of you might remember the video I made on that auction, and I described him as the horse with the leaf-shaped marking on his side. Although I lost, it was still cool to be able to see him in person. Now, most of the larger or colored horses, such as this beautiful Palomino, were horses that were won on the internet auction. Now, the two horses you see in the round pen area on the far right were about to be added back into the pens. I didn't arrive in time to see what was going on, but they were probably pulled out to be viewed by their adopter, as they were both won in the online corral. Adopters have the opportunity to back out should the horse not meet their expectations or there be a physical problem. I believe these Mustangs were scheduled to load later in the day, so they were returned to their original pen.
So in pen 5,
The letters OLC behind the state the horses originated from stands for Online Corral. Now again, the Online Corral is an auction and horses start at $125, but they can go into the hundreds and I have seen them go well into the thousands. A lot of adopters choose the online corral if they're looking for something specific, whether in color or size.
Ooh, trouble.
They occur every other month and they vary in their pickup locations. I have several videos covering the online corral, which I'll include in the description box below. Like I mentioned earlier, this event had a selection of horses that were still available for adoption for $125. Many of them were yearlings. A few of the yearlings were about to be loaded into the trailer but needed to be sorted first. They returned the horses back into the pen that were not needed. At the end of the center alleyway was a round pen that was used to help in the sorting process. $1027. The staff members slowly separate the horses, and they repeat this process until they have the desired one.
You don't want anything there? Oh, we want him. What do you guys say?
Once they have the correct ones, they're able to load them into the trailer. All right, in pen 1, we have a bunch of burros. Some of them are for the tip challenges coming up. So trainers get about 100 days to train, and there's a competition at the end, all in hand. The Mustang Heritage Foundation is probably most known for its extreme Mustang makeovers, but it also has tip challenges. This event was the pickup location for the Massachusetts Tip Challenge coming up in September. It's all in hand with no riding, and they have a youth, adult, and burro competition. Youth are assigned a yearling, adults 18 and up get an adult Mustang, and the burros are open to both youth and adults. As I was filming the burros, I caught a glimpse of a horse kneeling on its knees to reach under the panels and steal some hay. I didn't quite get my camera there in time, but I repeatedly saw this horse reaching for hay. He was stationed at this one spot the majority of time that I was there. Hey, sweetheart. 4619. Really nice. This guy seemed pretty bold, along with this fellow right here.
Hi. Hi, love. Good. There you go.
You're cute. 4980. It's a black gelding. Both 4619, the horse snatching hay, and 4980, the one I just touched, were available for adoption. This guy was looking pretty tired, and I caught him a couple times looking like he was about to lie down. Alright, this guy is really pretty. Oh. And down went the sleepy horse. No doubt he was probably pretty tired from his trip here. This was tag 4877, also available for adoption. I really like this guy here. This was 4979. Now I love my short and stocky horses, so he quickly became a favorite. I like this guy's build. Yeah. Although he is very beautiful, one thing that I pointed out to a couple walking by was that he was in a better body condition and his winter coat was shed. Those factors can really make a horse stand out, so it's important to not overlook those with lesser body conditions or looking a little scraggly. With a little bit of love, those horses will have an amazing glow up. I heard a little commotion, so I moved down to pen 4, where a Palomino mare was driving around a couple of the other horses. The poor thing was showing a lot of different signs of stress, and in a larger pen this probably wouldn't be happening. The bay mares were more than willing to get out of her way, but there really wasn't anywhere to go. Now this is not their holding facility, these are the pens set up for the adoption event. Actually, these horses were shipped to New Hampshire earlier in the week, I believe from Illinois, but all the horses would have had to be shipped to Illinois at some point as well. With all the travel, small spaces, and people walking by, there's a lot of reasons for a horse to be stressed. The frustrations with the other horses, the tension in the eyes, lips, nostrils, the yawning, and the biting the water tank here, these are all indicators that this horse is stressed.
Oh, poor guy.
these mirrors? Can you see what that is? 8934. 9934 was adopted in the online Corral and will hopefully be able to decompress after going to her new home. It's important to remember that these horses have had their lives turned upside down and have been under a lot of stress. Recognizing the signs of stress is really helpful, not only for training, but also so you don't get caught up in misassessing their personality because of that stress. This is not a bad or cranky horse. She is just under a lot of stress here, which, by the way, can put a horse at risk for developing ulcers. And of course, I'm not suggesting that's the case with her, but I'm just throwing it out there. Imagine what it would be like to try to gentle a wild Mustang that's in pain. A wild horse in pain is going to feel more vulnerable and maybe more protective and defensive. If you're considering adopting a wild Mustang someday, it's really important to be considering all of these factors. Anyway, that was a bit of a rabbit trail, but it seemed like a good segue and something important to talk about. Going back to this sweet horse, I really hope she's able to fully relax in her new home and reveals her wonderful personality. How do I know she has a wonderful personality? Well, she's a horse.
You guys are all tired. Long trip.
So here's a quick look of the setup for the day, which was the same setup that I saw in Annville, Pennsylvania when I picked up my very first Mustangs. They had an alleyway down the center, ending with the round pen, and horses on both sides. BLM Mustangs have a freeze brand on the left side of their neck. This freeze brand is part of the alpha angle system, which can be easily read. The last 4 digits of the Mustang's freeze brand is the 4-digit number you see on their neck tag. Sometimes you'll have to shave the brand to be able to read it, but other times it's clear, like the horse on the right here. From his brand, I can see that he was born in 2016 and has a registration number of 894828. Now the horse on the left has an additional U-shaped brand on his neck. This means that he's a sale authority Mustang and that ownership will pass immediately from the federal government to the buyer. Typically, wild horses and burros are adopted out as untitled, meaning they're still government property for the first year. However, horses and burros more than 10 years old, or younger animals that have been offered for adoption at least 3 times, become eligible for sale. So tag 8438 was a sale authority Mustang because of his age. Then I saw a couple of other Mustangs that I recognized. These ones were actually famous. They were from the Southsteens HMA in Oregon, an area well documented by photographers, so these horses have been followed throughout their lives and even have names. This is Cheveo and this is Marquis. The sad thing is, by walking by these pens, you would have absolutely no idea who these horses were. On the clipboard in front of their pen, it says they're from Oregon, but it doesn't say they're HMA. It's only because I follow the internet auctions that I know that. I remembered seeing both of these horses and I knew that they were from Southsteens. So after this event, I went home and searched a Southsteens Facebook group. I found their names and stunning pictures of them in the wild. I hesitate to share those photos just because of the copyright, but wow, it was truly incredible to see that, and I would just love digging into their stories a little bit more. It's sad that they already have a bit of a forgotten past. I wish more people knew.
Hi, love.
Now, the majority of wild Mustangs don't have their lives documented by photographers, but there are some HMAs that are more closely followed. In recent internet adoptions, we've seen the Anarchy, Southsteens, and Sandwash Basin horses. We've now moved on to the yearling pen, and if you want to see what an ungroomed horse looks like, well, here you go.
I love the girls.
The yearlings were still in the process of shedding their winter woolies.
And those mud balls on the belly.
This is quite common to see when you're adopting a wild Mustang this time of year, and I imagine this is what they look like in the wild as they shed out. You don't know what dirty is until you adopt a wild horse. When you start touching them and grooming them, it's just a whole different layer. Domestic horses really don't compare. Now, to adopt a wild Mustang, the BLM requires a 6-foot high fence of approved material for an adult Mustang. For a yearling, they require a 5-foot high fence. And a 5-foot high fence is also a requirement for a gentled adult wild Mustang. Burros, however, only require a 4.5-foot fence. Shelter requirements vary by state, but it's good to check the BLM website. Now, after 1 year, Mustangs become eligible for titling, which means ownership is passed from the government to the adopter. Once a horse is titled, they no longer have these same requirements, although obviously they're good to keep in mind if the horse isn't fully gentled. If you're considering someday adopting a wild Mustang, I have a whole playlist of helpful videos on the topic. I'll link that in the description below. I looked across the aisle and saw 4877 still sleeping, about 15 minutes later, and one of the other horses had joined him. Both were unbothered by the staff member walking by. Although his tag was hard to read, this was the horse snatching hay from the burrows earlier, 4619. Now, adult horses sleep about 2.5 to 5 hours a day, most of which is in the standing position. However, to achieve rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, the horse must be lying down. They need at least 30 minutes of REM sleep in a day to avoid sleep deprivation, and it might occur in several sessions throughout the day. If they aren't comfortable enough to lie down, REM sleep deprivation will negatively affect their health as well as their training. Now, my Mustangs are pretty predictable in their sleep schedule. They usually go down around the same time every day and nap together. Now, these two Mustangs seemed pretty chill in the pen, but I bet they were also tired from their trip here. 4877 began looking for his next napping spot. During my 5.5 hours here at this event, there were multiple lulls throughout the day. There were moments that it was pretty busy, but also a lot of quiet time. I looked over and saw 4979 greeting a visitor. He was the short and stocky gelding I liked.
Oh. Are you getting him?
Right.
I really want to know who he goes home with. That is a cute horse.
It's so sweet.
Yeah. $4979. It is a 6-year-old bay gelding. If you get him, let me know. I would love to follow you. Good boy. Did you get one?
Well, I already bought one of those. But I like the one that's been sick. That's why I asked if I could see him too.
Poor guys, they're probably so tired. Long trip.
Can I see this guy? 4979, right?
Mm-hmm. He, yeah. A potential adopter was now going to look at 4979.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, 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 hey. Come on, babies. Let's go. Good job. Is this an internet? Did you adopt both of them on the internet, or is this a new one?
I adopted that one already. This one I'll put in the trailer as long as he's down. If he's not taking
This is a nice horse.
Yeah.
Put together really well.
Yeah. That's good. I just didn't get to see him move at all.
Nice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Look, he's small, but he's real stocky.
Yeah.
I love
Real
him.
strong.
It was decided 4979 would be going home with his new adopter, along with 6509. He was returned to his pen while his adopter completed the paperwork. I then continued my walk around the pens, and then got a touch from 4877, the napper.
Hello.
Who are you? Oh. What number is that? Can you tell?
7-year-old
Oh, you are adorable. Hi. Hi, love. Like many of the horses, his mane was matted and in need of a good detangling. Look at those.
Can I say hi? Say hi? Oh, yeah. They're very cute.
Alright, so I've been looking at pen 2. This guy has been stealing the burro's hay. They're almost up in this pen. 4619 was back at his station after a nap. I'm really glad that I went here for 5.5 hours instead of a shorter period. Had I only been there for an hour or two, I may not have seen some of these personalities unfold. This was tag number 4653, and he reminded me a lot of my Mustang Raven. I was able to touch quite a few while here. All right, pen 3, we've got a bunch from the online Corral from California and Nevada. I definitely remembered the sorrel mare from the internet auction. She was one of my favorites. She has a sportier, athletic type build and is pretty tall for a Mustang. She was definitely a looker, and I wish I got more from this pen. I didn't get a whole lot. It was a pretty overwhelming day, and it was hard to remember what I recorded and what I didn't. The dark mare in the back there was super adorable, and I can't believe I missed her. Pen 4, we've got some mares. Those 2 are taken for, but the 2 bay mares are available currently. It was now time for the newly adopted Mustangs to load up on the trailer for their ride home. 4979 was sorted and sent to the round pen. Then they went in for 6509. When they enter the pen, they first have to identify the horse that's being adopted. While some of the neck tags are pretty clear, others were quite challenging to read, covered in dirt and grime. Sometimes the tags do come off, but remember, the tag number is the last 4 digits of the Mustang's Freeze brand, so they can always read that to identify the horse too. And then there's also the option to scan the microchip. Once the correct horse was identified and it left the pen, they closed the gate. Now, in order to bring a wild horse home, you have to meet the trailer requirements. They should be stock type with enough room for the horses to turn around. No 1-horse trailers are approved, and 2-horse trailers are approved on a case-by-case basis. Trailers must be a step-up with rear swing doors and no drop ramps. Once that trailer was off, another one pulled in for pickup. This time it was Cheveo being picked up. Cheveo had been moved from his pen to the center aisle during the sorting process. The other former stallion from Southsteins came forward, Marky. And in case you're wondering, all the stallions are gelded before being adopted. The staff members slowly worked towards separating the horses until only Cheveo remained. As she worked towards separating the bay from Cheveo, I was really impressed with his reaction here. I see her here trying to quietly separate the 2 horses. Based on her reading of Cheveo, all she needs is a simple step in between them, and he steps back. A very level-headed response. And also a good judgment call on the staff member's part. She gave him the opportunity to demonstrate how level-headed he was, and move off of pressure and do so quietly. I then walked down to the loading area so I wouldn't miss it. And just like that, he was loaded and off to his new home. All right, is this pen 10? We've got a bunch of yearlings here. Mostly, all from Utah for the tip challenge, most of them. Now with the yearlings, there's probably a mix of some that were born in the wild and some that were born in holding facilities because their mothers were rounded up while pregnant. My very first Mustang was born in holding and lived the first 2 years of her life in the holding facility. And it's not uncommon for a Mustang to spend a couple of years in holding before being adopted. 1001 was super cute, as well as 1026 and 1076 here. Well, let's be honest, they were all cute, but I really wanted to bring one home. They were just so adorable. I already have 4 Mustangs though, but if I had a truck and trailer, I probably would not have been able to resist. I don't know how the second day of adoptions went, but when I was there was quite a few that still needed homes. 1075 appeared to be super sweet, giving an unreciprocated grooming session. And it was also super curious and inquisitive. such soft eyes on that baby. One of the yearlings was adopted and about to load onto the trailer. It was 1076, the Gruya.
1076. I'm thinking it's this one right here. Yeah, it is. Okay, how y'all want to do this? Hey, wake up, kids. Wake up. Easy now, babies. Oh, look, it's here. Kids, going back.
The filly was a little bit nervous moving over the base of the gate. Once separated, she would be loading with 2 of the burros. Now, like I mentioned earlier, most wild mustangs are adopted out as untitled. After 1 year, they become eligible for titling. I haven't yet had a Mustang titled through the BLM, but I have had it done through the U.S. Forest Service, a smaller agency. As part of the titling process, I had to have a vet over for a compliance check to ensure that my horses were healthy and well cared for. The vet also verified the identity of the Mustangs by scanning their microchip, as the U.S. Forest Service horses don't have brands. After that, the vet filled out a form that was sent to the U.S. Forest Service, and shortly after, I received my titles. Unlike the BLM, the U.S. Forest Service does not have an adoption incentive program. Now, the BLM, in order to encourage more adopters to give a wild horse or burro a home, provides up to $1,000 to adopt an untrained wild horse or burro. Adopters receive the incentive up to 60 days after the animal is titled, so after a full year of caring for the animal. The goal of the program is to reduce the Bureau of Land Management's costs for care of unadopted and untrained animals, while also placing into homes the access animals that have been removed from range. Again, like pretty much everything else that I've said in this video, there is so much controversy around these topics, and there's a lot of concern over people who are misusing the adoption incentive program and placing Mustangs at risk. The concern is that there are individuals who are adopting Mustangs to receive that incentive check and then dumping the Mustangs into the slaughter pipeline. As an adopter myself, the thought of the incentive doesn't even come to my mind as a decision factor. In fact, I often forget the program exists. I've made several information videos on the adoption Mustangs, and I think this is actually the first time I have remembered to talk about it. It's just so far in the back of my mind. The reality is that $1,000 doesn't even begin to cover the costs that I invest in the horse for its transportation, for its feed, for its health care, and then my time. But I don't doubt that there are bad people out there and people who will do anything for money, unfortunately. However, at this event, I was able to meet and chat with many people, and overwhelmingly, the people here were very kind and compassionate and empathetic of the horses. I spoke with people adopting Mustangs, trainers, a sanctuary, and interested citizens. It was really nice to connect with others with a common love for Mustangs. Now, I spent the majority of the day here and stayed until the very end. There would be another adoption event the following day. The afternoon was pretty quiet here, and by the end of the day, there were still many horses that were still available for adoption. The unadopted Mustangs would unfortunately be loading back onto the trailer for a long trip back to the BLM holding facilities. Some of the Mustangs will continue to wait to be adopted, and others may enter long-term holding at an off-range pasture. As I mentioned earlier, there are about 60,000 wild horses and burros in holding. About 20,000 are in off-range corrals, and about 40,000 are in off-range pastures living out their lives. By the way, if you're an American citizen, this of course means that your taxpayer dollars are going towards funding this. Actually, about 60% of the program costs went into off-range holding. In the fiscal year 2022, $83 million went to off-range holding, out of the total $138 million. So whether you are aware or not, this program is actually affecting you. However, keep in mind that this is government budget, and I have a feeling that there are other things that cost way more than this. Again, I'm just sharing information with you that I've uncovered. You can find all of this on the BLM website. However, keep in mind that in the 2022 fiscal year, 20,000 horses were removed, and only 8,000 were placed into private care. Simple math reveals that this is a problem should this pattern continue, and that's why many are advocating for other management practices, such as fertility control. Now, just saying that sounds easy, but you have to consider the limitations and the practical aspect of administering these treatments. If there's anything that I can encourage you to take away from this video, it would be don't jump into conclusions and do your own research. I encourage you to check out the program data for the Wild Horse and Burro program, as well as check out some other sites, such as the American Wild Horse Campaign or Wild Horse Education. The issues and debates around the management of wild horses and burros are truly complex. All too often, assumptions and generalizations are made and the wrong people are villainized. I think it's important to have knowledgeable and respectful conversations around these topics, especially if you're trying to change someone's opinion. I wish that was common sense, but unfortunately, I don't think that's the case anymore. If you're interested in making a difference in one of the lives of these Mustangs through adoption, I have numerous videos that will help you navigate the process. It's a big challenge and a big responsibility, and it's important to be ready for that. But it is also incredibly rewarding, and I promise you, it will change your life.